Hello everyone, welcome to the Wind Up with Will. I'm your host Will, here with another video today, and we're going to be talking about the MLB the end of the regular season and the playoffs that have started this week. Some of the series, the wild card series is already over, and we're into the division series now. I'm sorry I couldn't get a video out sooner to cover the wild card series. I was busy Monday watching the Mets games and the Titans game later on that night, the Monday Night Football game. And then Tuesday, the playoffs started. I was watching that. Had something going on before it. The best time would have been last night, but I had something going on last night as well. So I'm doing it after work today, and hopefully this video can be uploaded at least sometime today. I'm going to try and cut this video a lot shorter because I'm not going to cover a bunch of stuff this video, where it's going to be a 30-minute video. It'll probably be 15-ish minutes, hopefully. So hopefully it's up within a few hours rather than as opposed to nearly 2 days of wait time for a video. But anyways, on Monday, the Braves and Mets played a couple of makeup games that were rained out last week due to the hurricane. I'd also like to say my thoughts and prayers are with the people that are affected by Hurricane Helene and in the Carolinas, in Georgia, East Tennessee. It's a tragedy what has happened there, and just a lot of devastation. A lot of people lost their lives. I want to say my prayers go out to all those people there, and I hope you will pray with me for them. Due to Hurricane Helene, the games got moved to this past Monday. And the Mets and Braves had to play them. They had to get them in because it was going to determine who made the playoffs. If the Diamondbacks had managed to lose on Sunday, the games probably wouldn't have mattered, and they would have just put the Mets and Braves in. But we got some exciting baseball out of it. The Diamondbacks won, and the only way the Diamondbacks would make the playoffs is if either the Braves swept the Mets or the Mets swept the Braves, because both teams held the tiebreaker over the Diamondbacks. If each team won one game of the doubleheader, they would each tie the Diamondbacks in the standings, and both of them hold the tiebreaker, so they get in over the Diamondbacks. That's exactly what happened. We had one of the most exciting games of baseball I've ever watched on TV or at any point. Was the Mets Braves game one of the doubleheader on Monday. Now, more than likely, like I said in my last video, what was going to happen is one team, as long as one team, whoever won game one, was probably going to take their foot off the gas in game two, just because the limitations of pitching and wanting to have your pitchers ready for the wild card series, which was starting the very next day. So both teams had a couple of starters that they had lined up to throw, but they were both throwing their next best starter instead of their best, hoping that their best would be available for the wild card series. So in game one of the doubleheader, the Mets threw Tyler Miguel, who'd been pitching fairly well recently, and the Braves threw Spencer Schwellenbach. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Yeah, Schwellenbach. Yeah, the Braves threw him. He has been a really good pitcher for the Braves this year. And lined up for game two was Chris Sale for the Braves and Luis Severino for the Mets. But if the Mets won, they're going to save Luis Severino for the wild card series and just throw out whoever in game two. And if the Braves win game one, they're not going to throw Chris Sale game two. They're going to save him for the wild card series. But as fortune favors it, the Mets managed to win the extremely exciting game. The Braves got out to an early 3-0 lead. The Mets came storming back in the eighth inning, scoring 6 straight runs to take the lead 6-3. And then in the bottom of the eighth, the Braves scored 4 runs to take a 7-6 lead. So all of a sudden, a ton of scoring late in the game. And then Francisco Lindor, the MVP of the Mets this season, hits a 2-run home run in the top of the ninth off the Braves closer. It was only his second home run he's given up all year, I think. No, I take that back. I'm thinking of another pitcher. I take that back as well. Iglesias their closer came in the eighth to try and stop the bleeding. That's when Nemo hit a 2-run home run to cap it off, 6-3 lead. And then in the top of the ninth, Francisco Lindor, MVP for the Mets, hits a 2-run home run to give the Mets the lead 8-7. Mets shut out the Braves in the bottom of the ninth to win 8-7. They win game one. The Mets have clinched a playoff spot. They're going to the playoffs, and what has been such a house of horrors for the Mets in Atlanta, they finally get over the hump and win a big game in Atlanta. I think Frank the Tank said on Twitter, I don't know if this is accurate or just him exaggerating, the Mets in Atlanta are 0 for 37 in must-win games, and they finally got a win. I'm sure Frank was exaggerating, but that's what it's felt like, that the Mets are like 0 for 1,000 in must-win games in Atlanta. I was at a couple of those a couple of years ago in 2022. The Mets finally got over the hump in Atlanta. They won a big game there and made the playoffs, which means they're not going to throw Luis Severino game two, so they're saving him for the wild card series game one against either the Brewers or the Padres. Now, if the Mets win game two, we would go see the Padres, and the Diamondbacks would play the Brewers. But if the Braves win, the Braves play the Padres, and the Mets play the Brewers. So the Mets didn't really try in game two. Our starting pitcher was Joey Lucchesi, is how I say his name. Lucchesi is what I call him, because that's how it's spelled. Lucchesi is how you say his actual name. Joey Lucchesi, he was called up. He pitched okay, pitched 6 innings, only gave up 1 earned run. But the Braves won 3-0 because it was a must-win game for them. The Mets didn't throw any of our top pitchers in that game. We wanted to save them, and we put some of our backup guys in the game to play. Lindor did not play in game 2. So the Braves won. They make the playoffs. They faced the Padres in the wild card series, and the Mets were going to the Brewers. Now, if I were making my predictions, I didn't have time to do a predictions video for the playoffs, but I'm just going to tell you what I thought would happen. So in the playoffs, in the wild card series, you had the Mets at the Brewers, the Tigers at the Astros, Royals at the Orioles, and Braves at the Padres. And the higher seed gets to host all 3 games, just for travel and the amount of time, so they can get onto the division series quickly. I figured the Mets would win in 3 games over the Brewers. I figured the Astros would win in 3 games over the Tigers. I figured the Tigers would probably win game 1 with Tarik Skubal, who's probably going to win the Cy Young in the American League. The Royals-Orioles, I think, is perhaps the closest series, where it's just in terms of the talent on the teams, even though the Orioles have a much better lineup. But the Royals have young talent, and they're a good team. I would say the Orioles win in 3 games. And then in the Atlanta Padres series, I said that would be the only series where there would be a sweep, where I figured the Padres would sweep that series. The Braves had just had to go through all their pitching, and they were going to be forced to throw Chris Sale in game 2 against the Mets to clinch the playoffs. And my brother, who's a Braves fan, had mentioned, he's like, both teams should just meet at home plate before the game and agree, before game 1, and agree, hey, whoever wins game 1, we won't try it all in game 2. You can have game 2, and that way you don't have to. That way, team, we know we don't have to throw our best starter, so we can have him for the playoffs. And when I saw that Chris Sale wasn't pitching in game 2, I texted my dad and brother, and my brother's like, they must have had an agreement. They must have gone with the agreement, but it turned out it wasn't an agreement. That Chris Sale had back spasms, and so he was not going to pitch in game 2. So it was actually looking really dicey for the Braves. Like, hey, the Mets might actually, not even trying, sweep the Braves and prevent them from making the playoffs, which would be very much justice for a couple years ago and how much the Braves have beaten up on us. But the Mets, we didn't really try. We didn't throw our pitching out there. So the Braves snuck into the playoffs. But with all the injuries the Braves have had, Chris Sale not being there for the wild card series, it was just not going to happen. And as my dad has said all year, if the Braves even make the playoffs, they're not going anywhere just because of all the injuries that they have. Their pitching is what has carried them, and Chris Sale being out was just another blow to them, and he was not going to pitch in the wild card series. I don't think he actually did. I don't think he did. Did he pitch game 2? He did not. Yeah, so him being out's a huge blow. They got to have him. He's the Cy Young in the National League. Him being out just really hurt them. So I was thinking that the Mets win in 3, Astros win in 3, Orioles win in 3, and the Padres sweep the Braves. Now, I got the Mets series correctly. The Mets won 2-1, winning game one fairly easy, going up 3-0 or 3-2. They were down 0-2 first, and they went up 3-2. Brewers fought back, took the lead, and then the Mets stormed ahead and won 8-4 game one. Game two was very, very stressful for me. The Mets took the lead 3-1 in the game in the top of the second, and the Mets just kind of cruised. The Brewers scored one in the bottom of the fifth, make it 3-2. And then in the eighth inning, Chiriot hit a home run to tie it. And then Mitchell hit a 2-run home run also to take the lead 5-3. And then the Mets lost a game they probably should have won there to clinch the series and rest up for the division series. So it forced game three, and game three was perhaps the most exciting playoff game I've watched, at least as a Mets fan. The Mets fell behind 0-2 in the it was a pitcher's duel for most of the game. The bottom of the second, Jake Bauers for the Brewers, a pinch hitter who is batting, I believe, he's batting 199 on the season. It's a pinch hit home run to take the lead 1-0. Very next pitch, Sal Frelick, the guy who got injured in the series between the Mets and Brewers, where the Mets are fighting just to kind of stay alive, where they face the Braves on Monday, where those games matter. He got injured in that series, running into the wall, running into like a corner of the wall, and so he's just now back. He hits a solo home run on the very next pitch. So it's the Brewers are up 2-0. The Mets season is looking in the dumps. It's looking over. The Mets hadn't scored since like early on in game two. It's looking like this is it. The season's over. I'm in a restaurant just like losing my mind. And then we get to the top of the ninth inning. Lindor gets on. Nimmo gets on. It's runners first and third. Nimmo singles to get Lindor to third. First and third. One out. Pete Alonso's up. And going into the inning, I was like, if we can just get a couple guys on or get one guy and get Alonso up, he's due for a hit. He's got to come through. He's going to have to get a hit here. I feel like he'll get a hit. And comes up with two guys on, and I'm like, please, Pete, you got to do it. You got to have a home run here. You're due for a home run. What do you do? A 3-run home run, and I was screaming, losing my mind. Very ironically, in a restaurant here in Murray called Big Apple. I was in Big Apple watching the Mets play. And 3-run home run, Mets take the lead. I'm screaming, losing my mind. Everyone's staring at me, but I don't care. My team just and probably won the game there. And then later in the inning, Marte singled to drive in Winker to get an insurance run. Mets up 4-2. Edwin Diaz gets the win. David Peterson came in to get the save there. Mets advance. It was and in the entire wild card series history, the 3 years that they've done it, the Mets are the only team that has played in a series that has gone 3 games. They've done it twice. They did it 2 years ago against the Padres, and they did it this year against the Brewers. Everyone else seems to sweep. It's again a reason that this format needs to be looked at again and changed. I think it'd be better to have some kind of wild card game or games rather than this weird wild card series, especially considering the Brewers are division winner and they shouldn't be playing in this round, at least in my mind. But the other series were all sweeps. I guess you could tell from me mentioning that the Mets are the only team that's had played in which a series has went all 3 games both times that it's happened. The other series, the Tigers won game 1 with Tarek Skubal. They won 3-1, and then they won game 2 5-2, eliminating the Astros. And as some people are saying, this is maybe the end of the Astros dynasty. Alex Bregman's a free agent at the end of the year. Their pitching wasn't quite what it used to be, and some of their other players are a little older. They still have Jordan Alvarez, Jose Altuve's still good, and Kyle Tucker, when he's back and healthy, it can be an MVP candidate. So I think the Astros are still going to be relevant. It might just not be the dynasty winning team going to the ALCS every year. So they got eliminated 2-0. The Royals and the Orioles. The Royals won game 1 1-0 off a Bobby Witt single. And then they won game 2 2-1. on a Bobby Witt single. Bobby Witt Jr. has been their MVP, and he is definitely an MVP candidate, but he's going to be runner-up to Aaron Judge, unfortunately. Great year for both of them, though. So the Royals sweep the Orioles, and then the Braves lost both games to the Padres. They lost 5-4 in Game 1, and then no, I'm sorry, that was Game 2. They lost Game 1 4-0. With Chris Sale out, they just had to throw a pitcher out there. They had A.J. Smith Scheuer pitch. Was that his debut? That was his. I think that's only That's the second game he has been in all year. So that Braves are out of pitching, just had to throw him. I'll say valiant effort. Well, he only pitched one. Pitched one and gave up 3 runs. Valiant effort though by the Braves. They only lost 4-0 in that game, so they were keeping it close. And then Game 2 they lost 5-4. They fought back, but the Braves they cannot overcome the injuries they had this year. And the Padres have been really good. They've been really hot down the stretch. They've got a good team, and they're a lot of people's dark horse to win the World Series. So keep an eye out on the Padres. So we had the Mets, Tigers, Royals, and Padres advance to the division series, which has started today. So I would say, as I said in my predictions, I said the Mets would win the wild card series with the Brewers. I said the Astros and Orioles would win. I got both those wrong, and I said the Padres would win. So I'm right on the NL side. In the division series, I would say the Mets. I just think we're a team of destiny. The Mets beat the Phillies and advanced to the National League Championship Series. And the Padres, I think, will play close against the Dodgers. I think it goes 5 games, but I'm going to say the Dodgers come out of that series. Mets, Phillies, I think will go at least 4. I think it'll probably go 5. Mets win that series, go to the NLCS against the Dodgers. And I think the Mets are a team of destiny, and as we've seen the last 2 years, teams that are on the bye with the 1-2 outside of the Astros have not advanced past the division series. I think the Dodgers get past the division series, but the Mets are just running hot. They're going to the World Series. I know it's a biased pick. It's probably might not happen, but just feeling the Mets. I think the last week has got me high on the Mets. So the Mets go to the World Series on the NL side. On the AL side, as I said, I think the Astros are a really good team. I have them going up against the Cleveland Guardians, is what they call themselves now. Cleveland baseball team, whatever you want to call them. Indians, whatever. I would have said that the Astros they would beat Cleveland and advance. And then the other team, the Orioles, would go up against the Yankees. I think that would be perhaps best. I think it would go all 5 games, but I think the Yankees would win and play the Astros in the ALCS. And you have the Yankees advance out of that series. Might go 7 games. Astros and Yankees just have hated each other over the last 5 to 7 years or so. Yankees win that, go to the World Series. So I've got Yankees Mets in the World Series. I'm going to take the Mets in Game 7. Revenge for the Subway Series of 2000. Mets are taking revenge. So that's my predictions. Just get the predictions out of the way. But here the games are coming up. I would say that would be my predictions going into the playoffs. But as I've said, the AL bracket is messed up for me now because the Tigers eliminated the Astros and the Royals eliminated the Orioles. So we have the Tigers Guardians playing right now. The Cleveland is currently winning 5-0 in that game. Mets play a little later on against the Phillies. You've got the Royals playing the Yankees later tonight, and then the Padres Dodgers tonight. I think this is going to be super exciting playoffs. I think with the teams that you have lined up, I think the Mets do beat the Phillies. As I said, the 1-2 seeds that have a bye, it's just not worked out well for them in this playoff format. Just setting out a week, it's not good for their hitters. Pitching lines up well, but it's not good for the hitters to set that long. So I'm going to say the Mets win this series. I do think it goes 5. I think these teams hate each other enough. It will go 5. Royals Yankees I think is also interesting because there is a little bit of a history between these teams. If you go back to the 80s with George Brett and went back in the Yankees as the Yankees were at their peak and then kind of going down where they hit their dark span in the 80s. So I say Royals Yankees will be a good series. I think that will go 5. I think that will be a good series. Um, I think Cleveland wins against the Tigers. I think the Tigers are a team that they're a year ahead of a year or two ahead of where they thought they were. Like they sold at the deadline and still made the playoffs. It's super exciting for them. Um, I think they are. I just don't see them going much farther. I mean, they could, um, but I think Cleveland has a really good team. They've got good pitching. They have a really good lineup as well. I think Cleveland's a better team. I think they're going to advance in this series. If they're going up against the Astros, who just seem to win all the time, I would pick the Astros. But they're going up against the Tigers. I think Cleveland wins. They win a playoff series, and they go to the ALCS to face the Yankees. I think it's going to be Yankees, Cleveland, and there's some history there too. And I still think the Yankees are going to come out of the American League side. It is the year for the Yankees in the AL. In the NL, I think the Mets beat the Phillies and will take all 5 games. I think the Dodgers Padres will go all 5. And I'm going to go Dodgers. I think they're the better team. Shohei has been playing phenomenally this year, making his playoff debut finally. And I think the Dodgers Mets are going to be in the NLCS facing each other. I'm picking the Mets. I think it'll go 7 games, but by golly, I think it's the year of the Mets. It is just our year. We've been kind of a team of destiny this year. My dad has said that. Found ways to win in games to get to the playoffs on Monday. The comeback win in the playoffs already against the Brewers. It just feels like this team's magical in a way. So I'm going to pick the Mets to beat the Dodgers and go to the World Series and have the Mets beat the Yankees in a revenge of the Subway Series from 2000. And I say that this series that the Mets win. Let's see, what do I want to say that they win? How many games they win in? Say the Mets win in 7. I think the Mets will win in 7. I think it'll take all 7 games to win against the Yankees, but it will be super exciting. Even if that doesn't happen, it's been a great run for the Mets to make it this far, and it's been an exciting MLB season, exciting playoffs so far, and it's just getting started. We're just now in the division series. It's best of 5, then the league championship series are best of 7, and then the World Series is best of 7. So we've got a super exciting playoffs coming up. I'm picking my Mets to win it all. That's totally not a biased pick at all. But hopefully they can do well, and hopefully they can win it all. But that's all I have for this video. It's gone a little longer than I thought. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments down below. Who's going to win the World Series? Is it going to be my Mets? Is it going to be the Yankees? Is it going to be someone else? Is it going to be your team? How do you feel about the playoffs so far? Let me know down below, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye-bye.